Okay, Impact. Let's get something done right now before I get into this video, because there's no reason to talk about it any more than what it needs to be. You already seen the opening. You see Chris Bay's face there. I don't know if I'm going to add anything to the graphic with his face, but if you don't know, Chris Bay received a serious neck injury when he was on one of the tapings at Impact. After Bound for Glory, it was a Sunday, he got injured. And he had to go immediately to the hospital. He had to have immediate neck surgery. And he is done. He's out. Now, is he in danger? No. You will hear, if you have not seen Impact, you will hear that he had successful neck surgery. His family started a GoFundMe. And if you can, unfortunately, I don't have the cash to be able to give to help. But if you can, go over to Impact, well, TNA. See where the connection is and donate if you can. But he is getting a GoFundMe to be able to pay for the neck surgery and for the rehabilitation to recover from the injury. Now, I want to say this right now. I do not believe, and it's obvious, I don't believe we're ever going to see the footage of that injury. Because there's a good possibility that this was a show that it was supposed to be on, but it was replaced by Van Kingo and Speedball Mike Bailey. And that's it. That's the way it may look. Now, if it's next week that taping happened, it'll probably be replaced with something else. I just do not believe TNA will show the footage of the injury to Chris Bay. I just don't see it. So this might be where it happened, this show, and we got it replaced with Van Kingo versus Speedball Mike Bailey. You already know what happened in that match. I need to say it. Let's move on. Now, they got heat. I'm going to say it like that. Was this a good show for building into Final Resolution? As a beginning, not too bad, but it's a big question of how they're going to book it to make a Joe Henry and Nick Nimitz very important. But let's get started here. What did we get in the very opening of the show? Next to Chris Bay, we got Joe being imitated by a Kaz. Yes, Frank Kazarian decided to come out with a beard. Like I don't shave off all the time very quickly because it gives me bad shave rashes. So I have to let my hair grow out a little bit before I can get rid of this thing. I hate having whiskers. Ugh. But you got Frankie Kazarian putting on whiskers, having a blonde wig, coming out doing Joe Henry and making fun of him. But Joe comes out and he says, hey, I'm not mad at this. It's entertaining. The first time in your entire career you're entertaining. He basically does lowballing, hit him in the nuts a little bit, saying he's never been entertained. But he made it very clear that he blames him for the cheat. He blames basically John Layfield, and he blames Nick Nimitz. Nick comes out and says, look, let's make this clear. We beat the crap out of each other, but, excuse me, but I believe in Joe Henry. I believe in Joe Henry to the point that I asked Santino for another match, but Santino said no. That's one thing he said. He also said, I wasn't involved in that because I didn't know what was going on. The only thing that I saw, because I didn't see that jackass over there getting hit, or you getting hit. I just saw my brother getting hit by John Layfield. I don't know what happened. Only thing I know is John Layfield laid out my brother. Look, I'm not your enemy. I'm not. And then we get the system coming out because Nick says the system is broken, and the system comes out and pretty much they bantered between each other, making it very clear the system is better than anyone. And he says, look, the system got nothing. Don't even say a damn thing. You got nothing. So they have a bit of a fight. Frank Kazarian is trying to act like Joe Henry, and then he gets super kicked and basically chokeslam for his trouble. That's what we got from them. It wasn't a bad opening. Now, what do we get from the beginning of this show? I'm gonna say this. Seeing First Class go up against the Rascals, I wasn't surprised to see that AJ Francis got the pin. There's no way the Rascals are going to win. Right now, they've already gone through their arc, Look, Trey just came back a little while ago after being injured. He just came back, and Zachary already had his time with well, do I want to see more Zachary in like the X Division on the main title scene? Yes. But he already did his part with Wesley. They're done with him. That's one of the problems that we have in TNA. Other wrestlers that you normally don't see that are pushed up in feuds that don't really mean anything for the world title is nice, but instead of doing more with them, they just drop them like a sack of potatoes. And now that Trey came back and he looks great, I didn't expect them to win here. They're going to do something with First Class. Now, is that fair? It's not the point. The point is that's what they're doing. Next, we got Eric Young. We got Steve Macklin and Jonathan Gresham versus the Good Hands and Josh, due to the fact that the Northern Armory could not show up because of some type of travel problem. Supposedly, U.S. Customs stopped them. Something happened. U.S. Customs stopped them. That's what Josh said. And they couldn't get in the damn country. Do I believe that could have happened? That could have happened. I'm not saying they were bringing in weed or anything, or any other type of contraband, or any type of craziness, but something could happen. That can happen. And maybe they added that into the story. Come on, America. Come on. What did they do? Did they bring in a little bit of... I don't know. Okay? I've never done that. I'm one of the most boring... I'm telling you right now. I'm telling you. I'm 53 years old. I am one of the most boring people you could meet. I don't smoke. I literally only drank 25 times in my life, and I had to be pushed into it. I don't like drinking. I don't do no drugs. I am so damn boring that I'm wondering, have I ever been exciting? Which I probably hadn't. This is probably it. You're welcome. But we get the match. Did I care about the match? It was alright, but it's more about Steve Macklin getting his hands on Josh Alexander. This is what it's all about. I believe Final Resolution is going to be about Steve Macklin finally getting his hands on Josh Alexander if they're able to stretch it there. Because I do believe they're doing December. And if they stretch it there, it at least will be some good storytelling. If they do it right. Moving on. Speedball versus Von Kingo, like I said in the beginning of the show, of this, not the show, but the review. That's where I think the ABC would have had the match. I don't know who they went up against. I'm forgetting. Maybe you guys know. But that's where I believe, if this was the show that Chris Bay got hurt, that's where they replace it with the Bound for Glory match. There you go. Now, Ash by Elegance went up against Dani Luna. Now, we got Ash by Elegance and Heather by Elegance. It's no longer Heller. Did I like the name Heller? Let me give it to you like this. The reason I'm botching here. Ash is, Heather is, but do I like the Reckless name more than I like the Elegance name? Yeah, I actually do. I think having her as Heather Reckless was actually a much more nicer name than Heather Elegance. It just feels like it should have been like that. At least give her time to develop into it. Not just join immediately and then eventually she would be given the gift of becoming elegant. Particularly what happened when you had Bright and Zaya Brookside screw up the punch party. In the punch. But in the end, Ash had to get help from Heather and the concierge. She wins. Now that's going to give them an opportunity to deal with, well, Jody Threat is going to go up against Heather Elegance. That's what's going to happen. That's what's next. Next, Maggie Moore versus Longling Lee. Why couldn't she be just called Ling Lee? Longling Lee? I think it's a little too long. Now, if that's her real name, which I wouldn't be too surprised, fine. But she's a wrestler. Sometimes you can tweak a little bit. And I think she could have dropped the Ling or Long Lee. She could have done that. Or Ling Lee. She could have just taken out one of the names. Having Long Ling Lee, I don't think rolls off the tongue. Sometimes to really get a wrestler over. Look, Xia Li That was a name that did roll off the tongue when she was in NXT and then up on the main roster. Long Ling Lee, I think, really doesn't really roll off the tongue. You got to have sometimes a name to go with your character. Let me give it to you like this. Was I interested in Long Ling Lee? She's fine. But actually more interested in Maggie more, because she wasn't a bad wrestler until she got dropped on the head by Long Ling Lee. But Long Ling Lee won. But then Savannah Evans comes out and basically lays out Long Ling Lee, not a Maggie Moore. So now she's back. Am I happy about it? I'm fine with it. At least we got an extra woman who's now back in the Knockouts division that we need, because they don't have that many women there. Look, it's very few women there. And 2 of them are currently doing double duty at NXT. So they got 2 women down. Who do they got? Xia Brookside, Dani Luna. They got Jody Threat. They had Tasha Steelz. They have, well, if you really want to say can I really say Alicia Edwards is wrestling much? She really isn't. She's recovered, but we don't see her wrestle much because she's an okay wrestler, but she's more of a manager. But we need more women. There you go. Okay, final match. Let me give it to you like this. The final match with the system. When we got Joe and Nick working together. I knew it was going to be an okay match, but I also knew there had to be something that's going to make both these guys get heat against each other. Because we don't know what John Layfield was planning. We don't know if Joe Henry trusts Nick Nimitz. You knew there was going to be miscommunication, and we got it. Once the system won, you see them fighting between each other. And I'm telling you, it was fine. I'm alright seeing this. It's not about if Nick is going to turn heel or Joe is going to turn heel. You got 2 faces who don't know what's going on. And one of them gets laid out by the kind of like someone who's a confidant of Nick Nimitz. And Nick is pissed off because he doesn't know why John Layfield laid out his brother, laid out the asshole as a Frankie Kazarian, and laid out Joe Henry. He doesn't know why, supposedly. So that's the story that we're going to have possibly going into Final Resolution. I will tell you that this wasn't a bad beginning of it if this is going to Final Resolution. They're not going to do it on an Impact show or TNA Plus show. And I think that is going to be a TNA Plus show. I shouldn't be saying that. But was the show alright? It wasn't bad. Santana talked well. We got, who else was talking that was on the show? I'm not going to say too much about everything else on the show. But like when it comes to Rosemary dealing with Wendy Chu, I'm going to leave that. Yes, we did find out there's going to be a match, a tag match with the Knockouts when it comes to Marsha Slamovich and did you actually think that Jordan Grace and Marsha Slamovich were not going to team up eventually? They were going to. And seeing that the system now seems to have Tasha Steelz with them, seeing Alicia and Tasha working together, that's not too surprising. I don't see a lot of story behind it, but it's what they've given us. It is something we will get into Final Resolution, but the question is, will it mean anything by Final Resolution? If they even go there. But this is just me. Peace.